And eventually there is respect because you go to war with somebody. It's a different kind of war, I don't respect at all any terrorist because his agenda is to fight against the guys that are not capable of fighting back. But when you're fighting a guy that's capable to fight back, and you're two martial artists and you try to figure out who is better, so there's a mutual respect there.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways that people's lives changed on and after the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking with people in Israel and around the world about how the devastating attack by Hamas has shifted, shaped, and changed them. To learn more about our podcast, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. So I'm here today with Rafael Aronov, and we're recording at the National Library in Jerusalem. I want to hand it over to you and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
My name is Rafael Aronov, originally from Arad. I'm 30 years old, a special police officer, and a martial artist, happily married to Lior, and coming from a Russian family that moved to Israel back in the 90s. What else?
Well, I think we can definitely work with that. Let me start, since this is a show about October 7th, let me start by asking you about what that day was like for you, and also maybe you should share where you live now.
Straight to business.
Yes.
So I live in Be'er Sheva, and on October 7th, of course, Be'er Sheva got attacked as well, mainly by rockets. So I just woke up. My bedroom is a shelter, basically combined with the bedroom. So I woke up in the shelter and then just closed the door. We thought it's just a normal thing. Probably something happened in the night while we were sleeping. Somebody got attacked or whatever, and just a rocket once or twice, and we tried to get back to sleep, but then another one and another one. And we started realizing we're not going to sleep. And we woke up and started to receive all the videos through WhatsApp and Telegram in all the groups, starting to realize something is wrong. So everybody's awake and start sending videos like it's just a normal thing in Israel. When something happens, videos started running in WhatsApp groups and in Telegram immediately. So I started receiving them and I started realizing something is not usual, I would say. And I didn't even waited for somebody to tell me to, but I just started to put my uniform on while I was driving to my unit, which is very close to my home, 5 minutes drive. I didn't even wait in red lights. I know something is wrong, so I just drove like a madman. And on the way there, I already got the message for all my unit to get activated as emergency scenario, which we are prepared for as a unit, but not that big. Like we always knew there might be a penetration of one terror squad or two terror squads into one place, one kibbutz maybe, or stuff like that, but we didn't expect any thing like what happened in October 7th, of course. So I arrived to the unit and I was the first one to arrive, but the last one to complete a team. So a team in our unit is 4 people. They immediately start screaming at me, grab your weapon and vest, and we're heading out to Ofakim. So in Ofakim, we already knew that our guys that worked in the Nova, the first call they got are in terrorists in Ofakim. So they left the Nova, they worked there and left the Nova very early in the morning and drove to Ofakim. And 3 team members, a friend of mine, are already hurt there from gun shooting. So we already know what we're heading to in Ofakim. We almost immediately headed to the house of Rachel, the girl with the cookies.
Mm-hmm.
We got surprised a bit because we didn't know if they're inside the house because nobody was shooting. We knew there's terrorists somewhere in this place. And they shot at us first, and then we started like trading with them. And that's how my day went. I started there. Then when we realized there is people inside there, like hostages, it's not something my unit can handle. Everybody stopped shooting and they're starting to negotiate with them. And then Yamam, the special squad that deals with kind of this situation. But then I left the place because I understood I'm no use there. While I was there, 2 team members of mine got hurt from grenades. I just got lucky. So I took them to an ambulance, treated them, and then I took control basically over the team because I was the next guy in line, commander-wise. We grabbed another Israeli soldier and another guy that lives in Ofakim from my unit, and we made another squad of 4 people, and then we started going through Ofakim in other places where there was terrorists. So fought there, and after a while just understood that the rest of the calls we are getting, people are just nervous, of course, but there is no more terrorists in Ofakim basically. And then we left Ofakim to Reim, which were the place where the party was, the Nova party. When we arrived there, first arrived to a gas station called Urim gas station. There were coming plenty of people from the Nova party to there that are wounded, help them get to ambulance or whatever, treat them. We realized there is some people from my unit that are still fighting in the Reim, in the kibbutz. So we tried to get there. We saw a vehicle of ours, and then we realized 2 fighters from our unit got killed in a gunfight. It was very hard, but you don't have the time to digest it because they're still fighting. There is still terrorists, so you just put it somewhere. No, you're gonna face it afterwards. But then we tried to get to Reim, to the guys of ours from our unit that were fighting there. But the army was already there. It was around 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The army was already there and was blocking any vehicles that weren't armored. So they didn't let us in.
So this is 11 a.m.?
Yeah, this is around 11 a.m. after me fighting from around like 6:30, 7 in the morning.
So I think a lot of people have heard these stories about folks who just snapped into action. Were you keeping in touch with your wife during all of this? What was the fear level? How did she look at you when you left the house?
When I left the house, she knew I was leaving for a dangerous task, because on the way to Ofakim, I was already properly protected with the vest and a helmet, and my weapons were loaded, so I knew what's coming. So I texted her, I'm going to Ofakim, I won't be available. And I started thinking that there might be also terrorists in Be'er Sheva, and this is big because I started to hear all the what's going on in the police net, the communication, and she's alone at home, and who knows what's up, because I already saw some bad stuff on the way to Ofakim and inside Ofakim, like dead people, of course, and I started to realize it's something big. So I had a break between the house of Rahel when we stopped. There was a kind of a ceasefire with the terrorists, and they started negotiating with them. So I had a couple of minutes, just got my phone out and saw she's sending me videos. There is even videos of me inside of Fakim that somebody pictured from a house. She saw me running there. And
so she saw you in videos that had
she
been sent
recognized
into...
me, yeah.
So it sounds like at the same time, you're both extremely worried about each other.
So I'm not worried because I'm very present. You know, when you fight, you're very present. You don't get to think about anything, just fighting. Just take care of who's against you and just survive. You know, it's a survival mode. So you don't get to think. But at the moment I got my first break, I immediately was thinking about her, and I called a best friend of mine and told him, go to her home, pick her and my dog up, and just let her be in your home until I get back. So that's the first thing I did, and letting my family know for now I'm okay. And then I got back to fighting inside of Hakim. So I just took care of her, and then I just went kind of off again because I was in another house in Ofakim that also were with terrorists inside. And then afterwards, I didn't do any more extreme fighting. So I was kind of available. So she kind of relaxed. But, you know, the first couple of hours were very intense for her, traumatic wise. Because she saw the videos, she knew where I'm at and what I'm doing. So it was stressful.
How do you transition from this hyper focus of battle to this husband, son, human role, and then back in such a short time?
I don't think you learn it. It's either you have it, either you don't. So it's not something you can teach in school, or it's something definitely you get a mentality for in the army. So I was, of course, in combat engineering as a soldier, which is a combat unit as well. So I did some stuff in the army. and got to practice it or whatever. But I think that's just something you have or you don't. I guess I have it because immediately when I stopped real fighting, I was immediately thinking of her and of my family. Because when you're dumb, there's a say in Israel, you don't suffer, the others are suffering. So it's the same, like when you're fighting, you're not worried because you're just dealing with surviving and with fighting. So you just do practical stuff. But the other people that don't get to do anything, she's just sitting at home and she doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm fighting. I'm there.
So I think for people who are just trying to imagine this, right, from afar, we didn't really know that it wasn't a continuous fight, that there were breaks, that there were negotiations. How does that look? Like, how does a mini ceasefire, how did that happen? What did it look like?
So you're speaking particularly on Rachel's house.
Yeah, and I don't think everybody knows that story. So if you could tell us a little bit
It's a
about
crazy
it.
story, actually. As I said, when we arrived there, they surprised us because we knew there's terrorists, but we didn't know where. And at the beginning, we didn't know there is local people inside the house, local Jewish people inside the house. So we just fired back at them for a while. I don't know, for 10, 15 minutes maybe. There was shooting back and forth. Grenade got thrown at us and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the fire stopped. And then we saw a terrorist going down from the stairs and started speaking to us with his hands up. But we saw something is wrong. Like they first started shooting from the second floor, started speaking Arabic. They said they need somebody that speaks Arabic. And we brought somebody that speaks Arabic. And then we realized there is 2 Israelis inside the house and there is a terrorist there, 5 terrorists. I don't know why. Maybe the ammo got empty or some stuff like that. But they stopped firing at us and then they started talking to us and then realized there is hostages inside the house. And it was a very, very long negotiation. They got rescued only in the evening after 14 hours or something like that.
Who was inside? Who were those hostages?
So inside the house was 2 elderly people and one of them is the famous lady Rachel and her husband. And there was a hard scenario because their son was there at the scene as well, and he knew they're inside. He also a police officer, but he helped the Yamam, the Special Forces of Israel, to describe the home from inside. So when they break in, they know where's the rooms, who is where, and stuff like that. And it's a crazy story because she's called Rachel the cookie lady because she spent a lot of time with them and she started to give them cookies and to try to like calm them while she was there. And she was very brave, it's a very intense scenario. And what's even more crazy, the terrorists that were there, because they didn't have any ammo, they took a grenade and they took the pin outside of the grenade in order for the Yamam guys to know that if they break inside and shoot them, the grenade will drop and will explode on Rachel and her husband. So he hold the grenade, and it's very hard to hold the grenade knowing it can explode in your hand, like if you just let go. So it's crazy just to think about this scenario. And we know he has a grenade in his hand. But again, I was there. I fought those terrorists, but I left when I realized I'm no use here because I was still hearing there is shooting battles inside of Hakim. So I knew that me and my team are more useful in other places. So I wasn't the one that rescued her or something like that. But I was aware of the scenario and just hearing eventually later that day in the evening that she's got rescued, it was just a happy thing, a happy place inside all this madness when your friends have got killed and stuff like that. It was a spot of light inside a very dark day.
We have heard that a lot of the terrorists were on drugs, some kind of Captagon, methamphetamine. Is that something that you could see from where you were? Could you see that these people were drugged?
I couldn't tell they were drugged because I wasn't thinking about it. But when we shot at them, it took much more time to take them out than it takes to take out a normal person.
A sober person.
It's weird, yeah, sober person. You shoot at them and they're laying on the ground, but they're still moving. So it's not something that a normal person would do.
That's
crazy. Yeah, it's
something
crazy.
People who haven't done this would never have thought of.
Yeah.
How quickly someone goes down. And actually, that point, how quickly someone goes down and getting back up corresponds a lot to the MMA, I think, right? Before we
Somehow.
switch. Yeah, I think so. I think there are some similarities there. Before we go there, though, you mentioned that 2 people in your unit died. And I just want to give you an opportunity to share something about those people if you'd like.
Yeah, of course. First, I'll name them. It's not only them because later this day we also realized another guy from our unit got taken to Gaza. So the 2 guys I talked about that got killed in Reim is Uriel Avraham and Alexei Bodovsky. Um, I don't know why, but also there is a say in Hebrew that the God always takes the best people. So they were the best people. Simple as that. Uriel was a pure good guy, like a religion guy, and he didn't do any bad to nobody. Never heard anybody speak something bad about him, stuff like that. And same as Alexei, Alexei was just a great commander. I actually lived in his house for 1 year. Like there's a small apartment in his backyard, so I lived in his house for a year, and he was the best. Like he always helped me when I had trouble in my home, and he was a great commander and just a very active person. He will always look to work and to help other people. So I don't know why, but this say that God takes the best and the greatest people is so correct. And so as the other guy who got, now we know he got killed in a place called Alumim. His name is Ran Gvili, as well a guy from our unit, but he actually was supposed to go to surgery on the day after the 7th of October because he rides a motorcycle and he dislocated his shoulder and he was supposed to go to surgery a day after. So he was sitting at home and he was just driving crazy. He knew all his friends are at battlefield and he couldn't sustain the fact that he's sitting at home. So he said, forget about my shoulder, I'm going to fight as well. So he didn't have to. Like he was homesick basically and decided to join us. And he got a nickname from the guys in Kibbutz Alumim. He got the nickname of the savior of the Kibbutz Alumim because he had a crazy story which they were together with some of another guys from my unit, and then a car with terrorists passed them, and he decided to jump on a car that was chasing them with a soldier, not even knowing the soldier, just to try to chase them. And they got into an ambush, chasing after this car. Ran and the guy from the army, they got split, and he was hiding. He already has a bullet in his hand and his leg, and people is talking with him in the WhatsApp, but he's saying, "I'm hiding." But they're all around me. And at some point, he just realized I can hide here and they might find me and kidnap me. But while speaking to other guys from my unit, he just said, there is no way they're taking me alive. And he took down, while he's injured, with his last ammos, 14 terrorists by himself.
14.
14 terrorists. He was really surrounded by, I don't know how much, maybe 50 terrorists. He took down 14 terrorists. We know where he was kidnapped because some guys from the police investigated this scenario. So we know where he was, where he were hiding. There were 14 dead terrorists eventually got, of course, there were more than him. So they won. And eventually his corpse got kidnapped to Gaza. There is another guy who I did my basic trainings at the police for 7 months with. He was just a police officer serving in just a casual unit. As a police officer, you don't supposed to deal with terrorists that shooting you with automatic rifles and throwing grenades and launching RPGs at you. But he worked at the Nova, and he was one of the policemen. His name is Shael Knafo. He was a very good friend of mine. He saved a lot of lives in this day, and he had only a gun, fighting with people with much bigger capabilities than he had only a gun. So again, a very brave man and a father for 3 kids that are now half orphans. Again, very brave man, very good man. I used to have a tradition coming to his home every Friday, grabbing a beer with him and eating halal with schnitzel, which is a kind of stuff you do in a Friday noon in Israel. Very good guy as well. And again, I'm going back to God always takes the best. So he was one of the best. And on that day, you gotta give credit to the police. The same police that got spit at in the riots every Saturday in Tel Aviv. The same policemen that nobody is appreciating what they're doing, and they're working the hardest. And the police was, nobody loved them. But then at the same day, the army wasn't there, and the police basically saved the day. If not for the police, I don't know where the tourists have gone to.
They would have gotten a lot farther.
They would have gone like Ashkelon, Ashdod, maybe Tel Aviv, it's crazy to think about, but there were so many of them. So if not the police, who knows?
So that's a really good point, is that on October 6th, the day before the 7th, the police were not, their reputation was not very good. It was like they are the enemy in these protests. And then it's a great point that they came through when they were needed.
It's a shame that that was the reason for people to realize that, but people forget very quick also in Israel. I think now we're back to people shouting at the police, but the guys at the field, they're simply very good people that most of them, of course, you cannot cover everybody, but most of the guys in the police are good people, and they have families, and they just want for the good of the country. So generally very good guys that doing good.
I'm glad that you're talking about that, because it's something that I haven't thought about. The police do get a bad rap a lot, even in my country. So I think that this is a good time to segue for two reasons, actually. Talking about terrorists who didn't die quickly or who kept shooting as they were about to die, and what it means to kind of keep going when you're down. I think that links to MMA. You'll have to tell me. But also, the only video that I have seen of you prior to this interview, you won a competition, and we'll talk about that in a second. Because you're Israeli and it was after October 7th, people have been booing you. And you're basically saying, I embrace the love, of course, but I embrace the hate because it fuels me. And so now it just strikes me that even as a police officer, maybe you have had to embrace or at least tolerate some level of hatred or disrespect and keep going anyway. So if you could start to tell us about MMA and maybe weave some of that in, that would be great.
Everything is connected somehow.
Yes.
So as you said, after I won my fight in the 20th of July in London.
That's July 2024.
Yeah, 2024. I fought a couple of times. Even before the 7th of October, I fought on the 29th of September. So a couple of days after, a week after, I'm fighting for my life and for other people's life. This fight I won, and then October 7th, I took a break, and then I'm back to fighting in March. A fight I dedicated to my friends who got killed in battle. I lost that fight. But then the fight you are talking about with the famous video of me saying I embrace the love and the hate is July. And I won a fight in London. And they not always do that, but they allowed me to go to the cage with the flag. And I got booed because of the flag, I assume. So I won the fight. And simply as I said, of course, the love you get as a fighter is a motivation for you, but the hate is even more a motivation, because I think not as a fighter generally, but as an Israeli, something in winning and raising the flag in the face of the people that are hating is very encouraging and inspiring and motivating. You could see it in the Olympics with the national anthem, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are very proud to sing and just raising the flag just to succeed. Although they hate you, they want to see you lose. They want to see you fail, and you succeed anyways. There is a big motivation into that. Well, I have two ways representing my country. First is as a police officer, and this is the second way I represent the country. So winning means representing the country in a good way, right? Raising the flag, letting people know there is a great martial artists in Israel. So that's the motivation. That's why I said what I said, because the crowd was booing me. I don't know if, I was going out with the flag, so probably because of the flag.
Do other MMA fighters after these matches, do they socialize with each other? Or?
Yeah. Most of the time you do socialize with the opponent, because in martial arts, there is a general way of thinking about honor and respect between two warriors. So you go to war. 1 second I want to take your head off, and the other one I just hug you, and we know we have families, We have people that take care of us, and some of the fighters have children. We're just trying to provide our families and do what we love. And eventually there is respect because you go to war with somebody, it's a different kind of war, you know. I don't respect at all any terrorist because his agenda is to fight against the guys that are not capable of fighting back. But when you're fighting a guy that's capable to fight back, and you're two martial artists and you trying to figure out who is better, so there's a mutual respect there. And I always speak to the guy afterwards. Immediately when the fight is over, you shake hands and you show respect most of the time. There
So,
was
yeah,
one
please go ahead.
case, it actually was in a fight here in Israel. This fight got famous. There is a kind of stuff in MMA that called, not in MMA, generally in sports, it's called trash talk. So before a fight, there is sometimes press conferences, stuff like that. So you say stuff about your opponent just to try to get into his head or try to play the game. You know, it sells eventually. So there was a guy from Kazakhstan, which is a Muslim country, who I was scheduled to fight. And he crossed the line. He DM'd me through Instagram messages, picture of Hitler, and he told me, I'm gonna burn you like Hitler burned the Jews. So I didn't even respond to it. I screenshot his message, just as you said before, just to keep me motivated. As a grandson from the Holocaust survivors, so it motivated me. I just wanted to teach him a lesson so bad inside the octagon, and that's just the good part of the sport. You get to teach the other person a lesson. You beat, sorry for the language,
That's okay.
you beat the shit out of him
Hmm.
inside the octagon, and that's what happened. You know, he crossed the line. There's lines you don't cross, like talking about other people's religion or a family, or you know, for me, Holocaust, of course, is a line you don't cross because it's very sensitive subject for Jews, and he crossed it and he paid for it. You know, and this fight got very popular because of it. Because afterwards, I released. I didn't show nobody except maybe for my brother or my fiance back then. I didn't show anybody else the screenshots, but when it over, I just wanted to teach other people a lesson. You do stuff like that, you get paid for it, you know?
If you had lost that fight, would you have shown the screenshot?
Yeah, probably. Just to show he's an,
Not a good.
schmuck, yeah, an
Yeah.
asshole
Hmm.
or whatever. But I would have shown it anyway. And for me, there is no way I was losing this fight. Like in my mind, after he said that, the fight started. Like if you see it, I was very close to losing this fight. He hit me and I got rocked very bad, like very bad. There is a referee inside the cage, and he was very close to stopping the fight. But if he wanted to win, he needed to kill me. Just it
That was
sounds crazy.
your
The
deal with
mentality,
your
yeah,
son.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But because it was very sensitive, you know, for me.
So I want to learn a little bit about how you came to MMA, but I also want to ask you, in both of these roles as a police officer and a mixed martial artist, you rely on your physical strength. Is that something that's important to you, to be strong because you have Holocaust survivors in your family, or because you have Soviet Jews in your family? Is strength important to you?
Well, the reason I first started martial arts is because my father, when he was a Jew in Russia, he got peaked a lot, and his parents, they sent him to judo. So he'll know how to protect himself. That's the exact same thing that he did with us. He sent us to judo in a very young age, 6 years old, me and my brother were, in order for us to know how to protect ourselves. We just did martial arts from a very young age. You know, I think as a Jew, you don't have any other option than being strong and knowing how to protect yourself. Living in a country when you can face a very extreme scenario, like in the streets or I don't know where, you never know where it gets you. So being strong and knowing how to protect yourself is a crucial thing here in Israel for us Jews, not only in Israel, all over the world. Now that anti-Semitism is rising, so in my mind, if you want to handle yourself like all over the world and as a person here in Israel, you have to be strong. And eventually, we ended up making it a profession,
Both you and your brother?
and my sister as well.
You all are MMA.
Yeah, so me and my brother are MMA fighters, and my sister, she's doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's actually the number one ranked at her weight class in the world.
Wow.
So she's very good at what she does.
Wow.
So we are a family of warriors, you should say. I would even teach self-defense in schools in Israel. For me, if you're a Jew, you have to know how to protect yourself and to stand for yourself.
So there's a family tradition here as well. So you guys started with judo. How did you and your brother move from judo to MMA? What's the difference and how did you get
Yeah,
there?
so judo is you wear a gi, a suit, like a traditional suit in judo. So we did it for few years, for few good years, and then, as I said, we're from Arad originally. So the guy that trained us there, he just stopped coming to Arad. Then we had to find something else. My brother went to wrestling, and I went to boxing, which is a bit different, but it's all martial arts eventually. And then after boxing, we tried karate, and my brother tried karate as well. Just rolling from one martial art to another is something we used to doing. And then when I finished my army, I just knew I wanted to try it one day to combine all martial arts. We saw what's MMA, but we always did each martial art separately. And I always wanted to combine all of them together. And when I first went to my gym, which is the same gym I train as to today, which is Spirit, or now it's changed to a UFC gym Be'er Sheva, I fell in love automatically. Like, I knew that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. I haven't had any doubt about it. Yeah, that's how I ended up for now already 10 years doing martial arts.
And you're only 30. You started when you were 20.
Yeah, I started when I was 20. We say in our sports that 30 is your peak, and I truly feel like it right now. I'm still getting better, of course. I fought recently, fight that didn't went very well, not that long ago, on the 7th of September. I lost the fight, but it's just part of the game. I always get better. I want to do it like 5 more years maybe, because eventually your body is damaged in the sport, and I don't want to get to 60s and won't be able to play with my grandsons or stuff like that. So 35 seems like a good age to retire. So I don't have many more years in the sport, so I want to make the best out of it. Yeah, I'm also thinking about the future as well. That's why I'm also at the police, because I know I need something else to do after if I retire from the sports. And that's also opened an agency to represent fighters, because most of the Israelis don't have as good as English as I do. And I do tend to communicate well with other people, to connect with other people. So I opened an agency also for my future to have something to do afterwards, because you don't get to fight until you're 40, 45, 50. I don't know. It's a young man's sport.
So I didn't know that you have an
Yeah.
agency. Can you explain
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit more
So
about that?
basically, it's like models when they have somebody to represent them, to look for their contract. So it's the same with fighters. You need somebody to look after for you and to get connected with organizations and check your contract and make sure you make a good amount of money and stuff like that. So this just stuff I did for myself because of my good English and because of the connections I made through my journey. I traveled to Germany to train, and then to Brazil. I made some good connections, and I just took advantage of those connections. And there weren't other Israeli agencies before me. So I thought I'm the right guy. I did it for myself, and I got myself very far. So I thought, why not helping others? It's also doing good for other Israelis, which is kind of the mentality here in Israel. When we are together, we are strong. So I like to help other Israelis. Eventually, it's also a business. And as I said, thinking about the future, you cannot fight until you're 40, 50, or whatever. So you need something else to do. And somehow staying relevant in sports, because the sport is my biggest passion. And I want to stay connected to it somehow. I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Let me ask you about this period that you mentioned between around October 7th through March. Was that was a break that you were given?
It wasn't exactly a break. I wanted to fight, but we worked as a police for 12 hours each day for 2 months, around 2 months after October 7th. And we were mourning for our lost friends. For me, to cherish what they did, and they were heroes, true life heroes. I wanted to fight as quick as I could, just to make their names remembered. But ended up being in March. I wouldn't call it a break. I never stopped training, because for me, training is also kind of a therapy. You still fight and you still sweat, and you don't think about other stuff. So your mind is just disconnected from reality for an hour and a half. So for me, it's kind of a therapy, you know?
So you were saying that you had this pause in MMA fighting. I thought that you had taken time from the police. No, you were working
No. I was
continuously.
working even harder than usual because there's thoughts of maybe there is still terrorists inside Israel after the 7th of October. So we worked very hard on the next 2 months after the October 7th as a police, combined with the fact in Israel you do a Shiva, a week of grief, and then 1 month after the people got killed, you go to their grave and there's ceremonies, religious. So it's always hits you back. So it's very intense first 2 months, I would say. But I don't think it's healthy to just stop working because you're getting into your bad thoughts too much. If you just keep doing what you usually do, you don't have that much time. You digest what happened and everything, but you digest it very slowly and normally. If you would take a break from everything and stop training and stop and just concentrate on grieving and on what happened, I've been lost, you know, because no matter what happens, life goes on. So people die. It's sad. People die every day now in Israel, you know. It's sad. I still go and I still read their names, but it's wrong to concentrate on those kind of stuff because that's just the reality here. We fight for our lives and we will be fighting for my entire life and maybe for, I don't know, my children's entire life and who knows for how long. But our moral victory is to focus on life, on living. The guys that are fighting in Gaza, and my brother was fighting in Gaza for 5 months. And he told me, going out for breaks from Gaza and seeing people get to live life, get to train, get to go to concerts. They don't want you to stop and think only about them when they're fighting in Gaza. They're fighting in Gaza because they want other people in Israel to live normal life. So don't just concentrate on grieving. And of course, you need to grieve. I lost my grandfather and I lost very good friends. And you grieve, but don't make the grieving your life or focusing on that. Life goes on.
This has been a really, really good conversation. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. There's a lot here that I haven't considered before. So thank you for spending the time.
Thank you for having me. I had really fun as well, and sharing my story is something I used to do, but it felt unusual here, and I enjoyed telling my story, and I hope I get to maybe motivate somebody somewhere and maybe encourage some other people that are now having a hard time or hopefully that's my message to anybody that listens to.
I think that's going to come straight through.
Yeah, and I have to, one more thing. I haven't spoke about it too much, but my wife is my biggest supporter and my biggest cheerleader. She always encouraged me to get to competitions and supports me with everything around. So I just want to thank her and I love her very much. And yeah, just generally thankful for her.
Make sure she listens to the show.
Yeah, I will.
She has to go all the way to the end. All right, Rafael, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
איך תמיד שאני רודף הלב בורח מדמיין חלומות גדולים אני זורח כולם אומרים תשחרר תראה איך זה מגיע הצלילים השירים וקהל מריע יאללה תגיעי לי פעם שמה עמוק בלב הלילה רוצה לשמוע איך את שוב צוחקת יאללה להתרגש איתך עד אור הבוקר שעולה מהנשמה שאצלי הכל מושלם ואז הגעת פתאום הכל מרגיש אחרת מספר ושר אל העולם כמה יופי יש בך שאת מתנגנת אז איך תמיד שאני רודף הלב בורח מדמיין חלומות גדולים אני זורח כולם אומרים תשחרר תראה איך זה מגיע הצלילים השירים וקהל מריע יאללה תגיעי לי פעם שמה עמוק בלב הלילה רוצה לשמוע איך את שוב צוחקת יאללה להתרגש איתך עד אור הבוקר מבקשת להיכנס ללב איך בשנייה אותי כובשת כל יום אותי מרגשת ממני מרגשת להיכנס ללב איך בשנייה אותי כובשת יאללה תיגי לי פעם שמה עמוק בלב